until 3 or 4 years ago, I didn't realize. I thought issue was a topic that's a public concern. It's like, no, an issue is a conflict. People take issue with it. They know, I disagree with you. It's an issue. The word issue has conflict built into it that I didn't realize. So when you're dealing with a public issue, it's an issue rather than just a topic, because people are disagreeing about it. And people usually disagree because they have different interests. But they could also just have different ideologies, different values, all sorts of differences that make something into an issue. So you're looking at, for stakeholders, it's like, who is involved with this issue? Who's saying things about it? Who's fighting about it? Who's financing the opposition? Whatever, which legislatures or political parties or political positions are involved in it. And then you're trying to bring people who are from all those different places in the issue together to work on something. And this is where the Getting to Yes book is archetypal, that they're defining legitimate interests. There's a whole way of deciding. You get the interested parties together, and interest, they have interests. I love these words, the interested parties. Well, they're interested in this issue because they have something to win or lose, skin in the game, as they say, but if it overlaps with the passion that defines open space. I just thought that word, the language in this always fascinates me. I don't know if it translates out of English, but I live in those wild English mashes. So if you can get all those different people together, you can resolve the conflict. But is that what the larger people want? Does the population want something that has been decided between union and management? What about the larger community? It's sort of like, and on the other hand, if you have something that the larger community has said, it might not resolve the problem because it doesn't really speak to, what the people who are involved most closely with the issue want. So can you come up with something that covers both of those grounds? Whole, we're interested in the wisdom of the whole. Now, what is the whole? And I see two ways to carve up the whole. There's probably more ways, but on any given public issue, the citizens in general, the larger community, has a legitimate concern about how an issue is resolved. So you want to have the wisdom of the community as a whole, or the society as a whole, whatever, involved in coming up, with the best possible solution that you can. And what some people have said that when you're doing a deliberation, there's roles for experts and roles for citizens, and the role of the citizens is to hold the values of the community. What is it that's important to us? Research has shown that you need to have a desire for something, which is based on our values, in order to make a decision. Analysis can tell you everything about what would happen if you made this or that decision, or why you would make this or that decision, but it can't decide among the possible ways to deal. So the community has things that it values and wants, aspires to, whatever its needs. So that the wisdom that comes from tapping into that, and finding out what is it that the community really would want in this situation, is what I mean by the involving citizens for community values wisdom. And the democratic legitimacy is, this, if you don't have citizens involved in making the decision, it doesn't have democratic legitimacy. That's the whole point of having a democratic system, is that it will be the voice, the will, and in our case, the wisdom of the people involved in whatever decisions are made. Incidentally, I recently came up with people often talk about the people's will, the will of the people. And I'm realizing that will and wisdom are an interesting pair, and is will all we need to think about? In an individual who has strong-willed individuals, is that all we're concerned about? Well, no. We want them to be doing the right thing, kind of. We love it that they're strong-willed, but they need to be doing the right thing. So that's where the wisdom comes in. And we can do that. We can use that metaphor for talking about the political wisdom as opposed to and contrast and companionship with political will. So we have the citizens, involving citizens for community values, wisdom, and democratic legitimacy. And then there's stakeholders. And stakeholders are all the people who have a stake in the issue or interest, skin in the game, expertise or power that's tangled up with the issue. The people who are involved in the battle over how this is going to play out. Those are the stakeholders. And you want to pull as many of them in as you can, because the conflict itself is a system. And you want to include all the different pieces of that conflict in your wisdom generating conversation. And if you can successfully do that and generate wisdom that all these different people from different parts of the system think is a really good idea, you've not only resolved the conflict, but you have the wisdom of the whole system dealing with the problem of the whole system. So that, that can help guarantee a really good solution. And since the issue is intrinsically a conflict, resolving the conflict or transcending it are important signs of you actually achieving some kind of wisdom. And this idea that each can be embraced by forums designed to feature the other. A lot of stakeholder dialogues, for example, will have some people in them who represent the community. So you have public officials or community organizations, people who are there trying to serve the community in some way, who are there to speak for the community along with the various embattled people. And in a citizen deliberative council, you will often have experts or the people who you're trying to work over an issue that people are fighting over. So you expose the citizens to arguments going on between the people who are for or against various solutions, who represent different interests within the system, and they're informed in their decisions by the stakeholders. That's a sense in which you could have, you could embrace each side by just doing one. I like to explore, and there's very few experiments that have been done, but I like to imagine that we could get very sophisticated about doing both stakeholder dialogues and negotiations and citizen deliberations that could be integrated in various ways. That would be very, very powerful wisdom generating. So I say ideally both kinds of wisdom generating forums would be held on every issue. You're accessing more wisdom of the whole if you can combine both of those perspectives and approaches.